Um, Hello, I think Kadi, right? Um, yeah, Kadi. Hi. I put you on mute so that you don't show up in the recording, so that it's just me, and I just need to figure out the share screen. Excuse me, I just I had forgotten to yeah, hi. I'd forgotten to eat something, so I was so hungry, and I just like hurried eating something. Okay, let me get all set up here. Share screen. Can't find my screen share. Why can't I find my screen share? Hmm. Okay, here we go. So let me see. Here we are. Okay. So um yeah. Okay. Let me see how it goes. Okay, so the mystical side of business. And this masterclass is sort of the epitome of everything I've learned about having a genius business over the last 5 years, I should say. So I'm really excited to getting to share this. I just I have so much love for genius business over a human business, and I'm going to talk about why I call it human and not human, or a genius business, not human. And I have just so much love for it because it's once you let go of the idea that, like the how to do business that you learn everywhere, and you realize that there's a completely different way of doing business that is the pure self-expression of you. It's like the purest you that's coming out. You don't have to pretend to do anybody any you don't have to pretend to be anyone else. You don't have to follow formulas. Um, And you don't have to think, right? I mean, thinking about how to succeed in a business, it can really give you a headache, trying to figure it out. And you don't want to do this. So the thing about the genius business, right? It just flows out of you. And a lot of it has to do with not doing anything at all, because the genius business is you. Your genius is you in such a pure, transcendent way. It's like the divine truth of you. And and where I'm saying it here is like a genius business is the divine truth of you, right? So when I put the word divine in, it's like sort of to separate it or distinguish it from a purely human from a purely human business, which is what you've learned anything anywhere in, in this business coaching arena. It's like teach you how to have a human business. They might code it in mystical words, but it is still a human business, just with some mystical sounding words. But here we are truly going into the mystical side of business. And it's mystical because it doesn't make sense to your human self, right? This is really what mystical is. It doesn't make sense to your human. And yeah, so I think that's what I had not planned to say, but what I ended up saying. So, your divine giant genius magic. So, it's a genius, right? It is, yeah. I'm just going to break down like the 4 separate pieces of this, why I call it divine giant genius magic, because it's a bit of a mouthful, right? And I often just use 2 of these words, or mystic, sacred genius. There's so many ways I can put it. It should actually probably be your divine, mystic, giant genius magic, but that's too much. So it's divine, meaning that it is not of your human self. It originates beyond the human. The expression of your genius business or your genius is codes, and the only way I can really explain it is by codes, right? And you can think of codes as sort of molecules of consciousness. Like molecules, they or proteins, they carry information in the physical body, whereas the codes of consciousness, they carry, I don't know, frequency, some content, some vibrations, some stories. It's hard to put words in it, right? But when they're divine, they exist beyond the human concepts, beyond the human understanding, outside the matrix, if you want. So the matrix is everything that we already know. It's the human narrative, it's the human concerns, it's our collective understanding of how the world works. And the other part of, the human understanding is beliefs it's separate from divine consciousness. Now, I'm going into some very esoteric stuff here, which I hadn't really planned on, but it's coming up, so I'm just gonna go with it. So the divine consciousness is everything, right? It's like everything, everywhere, all at once. That's divine consciousness, and that's who we are. We are the divine consciousness, but our human self believes we are something else than divine consciousness. And so our human self with a human business believes it's separate from a divine business, right? And we get into all this like hard work and struggle and, strategies and fixing our beliefs and this and that in order to create a successful business. And none of that is necessary. None of that is necessary because we can step out of our human business into our genius business, which is divine. And I really want you to think about the word divine, because divine means is that it is of God. It is God, right? It's God's truth that is streaming through our genius. Now, God is everything, everywhere, all at once, and God is us because we're part of this everything, everywhere, all at once. And yet we cannot contain in our human experience, we cannot contain all of God. So the divine God's truth that's coming to our genius, that is our genius, is like a select a selected group of codes, of divine truth codes that's coming to us that is very unique to just you. It's your divine mandate, if you want to call it that. It's like the truth codes that God is streaming through you into the 3D world. And so it's very unique. right? It's really, really unique to you. You can't be the whole ocean as a human being. You can kind of get glimpses of it, but most of the time you're experiencing consciousness as much smaller and creation as much smaller. And that's fine, this is our experience. So the divinity aspect of genius, it makes it sacred also, right? It's like something sacred. It's a gift that God has given to you. And it's your divine mandate, right? This is like, hey, whatever your name is, like, hey, this is what, God says that this is what you're supposed to do here. So, hey, Gitte, you're supposed to do the Metamystique codes uh, on, in this life. And Metamystique is the word that holds the frequency of my genius field. Right? So everybody has that for the genius. It's like a word or a sequence of words that kind of like holds, it's not necessarily a description, but it holds the truth codes within it. And it's like, it's mystical, so it's kind of, you don't quite understand it, but it is nonetheless. So it's a giant genius. And when I mean giant, I mean it's like way, 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 way bigger than your human intelligence, your human mind, your human genius. It's giant, it's enormous, it's monstrous. Because it's of God, right? It's like think of the size of God. God is everything, everywhere, all at once. And your genius is of that size, right? It's like incomprehensible in its giantness. And don't even try to understand it, right? Because you really can't. You can go, okay, it's divine, it's God. God is really big. So if my genius is of God, then it means, then it means it's like really gigantic. And it is. And it's like way bigger than you can ever truly comprehend as a human. It defies your human understanding. And I call it genius because this was how the giant genius was how it was first presented to me. And I just instantly recognized it. When they started talking about the giant genius, I just recognized it. It's something in me. It just knew exactly what it is, even if I couldn't at that time have explained to you what it was. There was just something in me that just, yes, I know what this is, and this is what I have been seeking my whole life. So the magic then is how the impact it has on the world. So magic is what happens when you step outside the matrix, when you stop being human, and the God's love and abundance can just kind of like appear, stream into your 3D life and manifest itself without the interference of your human self. So it becomes magical in that it is not necessarily something you make happen. It happened all by yourself. It is yeah, it is something that defies explanation again, right? It's like magic is something you can't explain, like the sequence, like this. And magic is always something positive too, right? And so it happens when you remove your human self, get your human self out of the way so that the divine truth can just stream into your life unopposed, unrestricted, no resisting it, no trying to control it, and it shows up as magic. And your human self, your ego, will always try to control. It's like the the source of your ego is fear and lack. And it's trying to control everything so it can avoid manifesting fear and lack. And that if you focus on fear and lack, that's what you get, right? Um, so your ego has to be moved to the side or like taken out of the equation. And if you want to know how to do that, I highly recommend the How to Purge Your Ego Content masterclass, the first one I did in the series, which you can just reach out to me to get access to. So that's a magic part of it, right? It's like wonderful things happen without you having to work hard to make them happen. They just kind of like happen all by themselves. So this is why I call it your divine giant genius magic. And I want to call it mystic also because you'll never really understand your genius. You can sense it, you can feel it, but you can't. It's beyond human understanding, right? The ego wants to understand, but with genius you can know, but you cannot understand. So yeah. And this is why when it's a human business, you're always trying to figure out and trying to get it right so that you can get more sales. And you're always trying to take better actions and create better marketing and create better offers in order to generate more sales. So you're always like trying to, right? And you're working hard and more actions and better launches and better funnels and da 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 da. But with your genius, there is no trying, there is no trying to figure out, there is no taking massive actions, whatever. There's just, I know, I don't know. And it's takes a lot of practice, I should say, to become comfortable with not knowing anything. You don't know anything, right? And that's fine, because when it's time for you to take the next step, take the next action, create the next offer, then you'll suddenly know. And that gives you like all this time. You're trying so hard to create a successful business. Like all that time and effort and energy and brain power, right? You don't need any of that. It just goes away, and suddenly it frees up so much time. And it is something I often talk with my fellow genius livers, genius business owners and clients about. It's like when you're fully operating in submission to your genius, everything happens so fast. It's like you can write a post, and it takes as long time as it takes to actually write it, and that's it. Whereas, I don't know if you've had the experience, but if you're trying to create like the perfect marketing for, to try to generate sales, I used to spend hours on a post. Right now, it's like, well, now it just takes as long as it takes, and that's it. And there's no need to perfect anything, because it's not about perfect. It's about like not about the perfect expression, the perfect words, the perfect structure. If I think of a Facebook post, but it's like, is it encoded with your genius codes, or is it your ego trying to make a sale happen? And that's what matters, right? Because I believe that truly, strongly, unquestioningly, people want your genius codes. They don't want your ego, they want your genius. Because genius is like a gazillion times more potent than anything that your ego creates can ever be. And what I have been observing, like I've really been kind of like having it in the back of my mind over the last couple of years, like really looking at why are some people so successful, just doing their thing. And even famous people like Jeff Walker, he's very famous in the online business coaching community, you know, especially like from a decade ago or more. They submitted to their genius, you know, and they just didn't know until they had an idea and then acted on it, and then they acted on it, and then they acted on it, right? So the mistake that they did was thinking it was the method or the particular action steps that they took that created the success, when it was really their willingness to just go with whatever idea that came to them and just go full in on it. And this is what it is with the geniuses, you know, you just go full in on it. And you know, if you want to know more about like how your true path to success is, I have a masterclass on that also that you can reach out to me for. Which is not really what I'm going to be talking about here. It's more like, how is your genius business different than a human business? So this was actually just going to be a title slide, and I wasn't going to talk so much. So how do you know your genius is calling you? Because your genius wants you more than you could ever imagine. And for most people, it shows up as how do I say this? It shows up as this awareness of having something really big inside of you. And you know, this is something big that you're meant to, like, you know, create something within the 3D reality, but you can't get it out of you. But there's this sense of something really big within you that is like pressing, demanding that you take action on it, that you bring it into 3D creation. And there's like part of it is that you can I'm gonna answer your questions afterwards. So just hold on to them. I'll take a look at the chat afterwards. But there's a sense of this big, right? There is this sense that you are meant to have a successful business. I mean, not everybody's genius is going to become a business, but I'm focusing on genius business here, right? So there is this sense somewhere that you're meant to have a genius business. You're not supposed to work for somebody else. You're not supposed to put yourself in a box. You're not supposed to just like show up in an office and do something particular, right? This is like, that's not you. There's other people have that as a tone of truth life. But you know you're meant to have a successful business, and you can just feel it inside of you, and it can be so extremely frustrating to not be able to get it out. So this is when you like just start the search. It's like, who is a coach that can help me? What should I do? You look into branding, you look into mindset, you fall down Google black holes, you're totally distracted, you have no desire to live your life as it is, and you begin to think like maybe you should just go live in the wild for a year, maybe you should drop out of society. um, Depression, even maybe anxiety, uh, unhappiness. And these are like kind of your responses to, like, you can hear the call, but you don't know how to follow the call yet. And one thing I want to say about the genius is that it is always big, right? This is why you feel that something really big inside of you. It's not for small people. It's not for people who want to play it safe. It's not for people who just want a small business for a small life. It's like genius is big. And if you're called to do a genius business, it's a big business. And I know this because my genius, one part of my genius is, or actually maybe this is what Metamystique is about, is like to know other people's genius and what particular it is about, the worth for it, what it does for other people, what it looks like for a business. But one of the things, like when I've been doing the Genius Business Activation sessions, is that when I look into the future of your genius business, it's always a massive thing. It's always big, 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 big. It's genius doesn't, I mean, it's a giant genius, right? It's giant, it's gigantic, it's enormous, it's monstrous. It's not meant for small. So it's coded. And that's the thing, right? Your genius already exists, even if it's not activated in you, even if you don't know what it is. The genius already exists. It's like your divine mandate, your divine purpose, the business that God has coded you for, the business you were born to turn into a huge success, right? So the code is already coded for big success, is coded for a huge impact. Divine truth codes, right? Your genius is streaming. Your genius business is bringing divine truth codes into the 3D arena. So big wealth and big magic, right? It's like there's nothing small about genius. Big success, big impact, big wealth, and big magic. And it makes sense when you keep reminding yourself that my genius is divine truth, it's God's truth. How can God's truth not become a big success? How can God's truth not have a massive impact on people, much more than the truths voiced by human beings and egos around the world? No, God's truth have massive impact, right? And wealth, because God is all about abundance, not lack and suffering, but abundance and thriving in joy and love and euphoria and all these, freedom, big freedom. And it's coded with big magic because God's truth codes, again, it's like huge. It's huge, 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 right? And you don't need to control it. It's just like it just goes into the world and does what it needs to do. And all you have to do is show up and be available for your genius, just submit to your genius. And all this is going to happen by itself, right? Your job is to just keep emptying out your ego content so that you become available for your genius. And, think of it like this. It's like, you can only hold so much, right? It's like you're kind of having this human experience. You're not all of God, but you're just like part of God having a human experience. And there's only so much space inside of you. And if that space is all filled up with your humanness, your ego, your shadow, whatever you want to call it, there's no room for genius in you, right? So you begin to like empty out the ego, and you empty out the ego, and you begin to purge your ego. And then as you empty out the ego, like your your innate codes, like what you were born with, what you were born for, what God has coded with, there becomes room for them to fill you up inside. And happens naturally, right? There's no need to control any of this. And it's not work. It's about being. It's not about doing. It's about being. The whole way through. And so you are your genius, right? It's like the purest version of you is your genius when it comes to your business. And anything else but your genius, it's going to have less potency, because the more you deviate from your genius, the more you move away from the purest God truth, and you begin to like go off on a tangent, and you get this misalignment, and you begin to fall into something that isn't quite you. And you can just imagine that the purest version of you, put into the 3D world, is going to be way more powerful and potent and has bigger impact than anything that is not you, that is less you, that is a distorted version of you, right? So genius is big, and it it can be scarily big. It's like I've certainly been there. I've been, felt so much fear sometimes when this is what genius wants me to do. Or my ego has felt fear, right? Because it's outside my ego's comfort zone. But in my genius, it's just what I do. And one thing I've also learned, if I just go ahead and submit to my genius, and I constantly have to monitor myself for not letting ego take over, but like staying submitted to my genius and keeping my human self out of the way. It's like I'm taken care of. I'm taken care of. I don't have to like control for things to happen, because they happen by themselves. So yeah, I already basically said this. Your divine genius is divine truth code. It's your divine mandate. A mandate means this is what you're here for. And if you ever wonder about what your purpose is in life, it's the it's your genius, right? It's like, because your genius is about which particular divine truth codes that you stream into the matrix, into the 3D reality, right? That's your purpose. This is it. This is what you're born for. And it's extremely unique to you. Nobody else has those exact same codes that they stream to. It's like those are just yours, right? And if you don't stream them, nobody else on this planet is going to be streaming them. And it matters because we don't live in a vacuum, right? It's like you're not the only person in the world. So we need each other's genius codes. There's some people that need your exact genius codes for their personal journey, for their personal spiritual journey. And if you're not streaming, this is completely new information here. If you're not streaming your genius codes, you're actually hindering other people's spiritual path. I have never seen this before. But yeah, it's like, because you need the codes from different people. So your divine genius is also your most potent magic. It's like when you let your genius code like stream into the world with your clients or customers, or your graphics or your videos or the books you write or the teeth you fix or the cars you fix or the houses you clean or whatever it is. It's magic. It's always gonna open up portals to wealth and joy. And you may think that who could ever have cleaning houses as their genius? But people do. People do, right? There are people who love to clean. They love this cleaning, right? And there's no comparison. Nothing has more value than anything else, because this is just who you are. And it takes all kinds of people, all kinds of geniuses, and we need each other's codes. And it's just, And I like, this is something I've been noticing, as I've been coaching my clients, is there's definitely a difference in impact when, I happen to fall into my ego content and when I could stay pure in my genius, right? It's like genius, my genius codes creates true lasting changes for my clients in a way my human codes could never do. So it's the alien genius. So your genius, your divine giant genius, is not a thing you do as such. It is a field of codes that are just for one purpose, right? It's like for one purpose, if I can say it like that. It's like, what can I compare to? Like apples, right? It's like you can have many different apples, but they're all apples. And they all taste like apples. They all grow on apple trees, right? So it's like all apples. It's not like apples and oranges and bananas and, eggs and milk. It's like apples, but there are many different kinds of apples. Just like this is your genius is like a field of codes. And this field of codes holds within it a myth, like a story. And I was just reading something yesterday about fairy tales, like from Tolkien versus Disney. And Tolkien, J.R.R. Tolkien of the Lord of the Rings, he was very much against Disney because the Disney version, which was all about feel good, it took like the essential teaching about how the world is out of it. So it became like a cartoon version of a deeper truth, right? So when he was writing The Lord of the Rings, he really wanted to stay true to the fairy tales of old, which I don't know if you know, but a lot of them were violent and brutal and gory and not necessarily happy. It's a lot about sacrifice, right? But they were teaching essential and deep truth about life. So the same with your field. Actually, Lord of the Rings was Tolkien's genius. That was like his genius artist, big genius, right? So anyway, it has a myth, it has a story, and it's not like you will never necessarily know the exact story, but you can feel if you tune into your genius once it's activated. It's like there is a myth, a truth, it's hard to find the words, right? But it's like this rich, as one of my former clients said, it's like, bathing in cream, right? It's like this luscious, this richness of all these, codes of your genius. And those codes, they have just so much joy in them. It's like every time I deliberately tune into my genius codes, my metamystique field, it's like I get so happy instantly, or not even happy. I feel so much deep, 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 full body joy because my genius is not of the mind. So it has a myth. It has a story it wants to tell. And of course, I know my own myth the most, but my myth is really about the dragon's journey, which is from your ego to genius. And it's about like a genius business empire. And within that, right, it's like there's just like, I don't know, it's like I like things mystical, I like the mythological mythology, I like working with the archetypes. Um, I love magic. It's like this is all part of the meta mystique. And don't, if my ego takes over for a while and I start looking at how other people are doing it, and I think I should be doing it that way too, I lose my joy, right? And what I'm doing loses its potency. So I have to stay very, very committed and devoted to. This is the expression of my genius. This is the dragon's journey, and it's a genius business empires. And within that, of course, the activation of other people's genius and genius business. So the genius world is like with that field of codes, of genius codes, and the myth around it. It's like almost like another planet where you have different rules. It can look very non-human, but it's almost like a world of its own, like its own planet. And you invite your clients or customers, or well, clients or customers is usually what you will have in your business. Like you invite them into that world. And again, Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings is a huge example of that, right? It's like we were all invited to come into Tolkien's world. And when I think about like how meticulously in detail Tolkien created his world, with all the different races of elves and the different elf languages and whatever, it's like when you read his book or watch the movies, you are in his world. It's a beautiful, beautiful um, work of art, a masterpiece of literary art, like genius, total genius. So when I say it's alien, is because it is not human. It's a different world, it's a different planet, it has a different story than the human story. And it has this quality of non-human. So at one point I was kind of meditating. I don't really meditate, but I'll take time to like just sit and feel inside myself and discover what's alive in me right now. And for whatever reason, right? It's like I'm, everything that comes up when I'm like in this looking inside myself times, it's like I absolutely trust that it's the guiding me to the right place. So I was thinking about how it's the time of the wealthy mystics, right? And it's time for the mystics to, come into the world, instead of being the best kept secret. It's like coming out of the woods. It's like witches of old and the mystics of old and the sages, they tended to they tended to keep themselves apart, like live in a cave or live in a hut in the big forest, or up on a tall mountain or whatever. It's like that's kind of, they tended to be removed from normal people's lives. But it's time that we come in and join people. This is the age of the wealthy mystics. And rather than being poor and having no money in the cave and spending all our time meditating in a cave, or being the witch in the hut in the deep, deep, deep forest where you have to travel for 3 days to reach this witch, it's time for us, to come in and join, normal people. And so anyway, I was sitting with this, right? And then, I kind of experienced myself walking out of the woods and walking into a town, and I experienced myself, like in a on a stage in a town square. I was like teaching the things I knew, and more and more people was listening. And then the next part of this was that I was walking in the crowd of giants, and I was a giant too, right? But we were all like, we were not like small people. We were really, really huge giants, and that kind of really surprised me. I was like, what was that about? And I was just like kind of being there with it, because it's always just about being with what is and seeing where it took me. And I realized that each giant was whole in and of itself, right? And there's like, um, because with human beings, you have a lot of enmeshment and entanglement, and people trading feelings and people trading beliefs and thoughts, and it's like all kind of like a big, messy, energetic tangle. And you have the collective. With giants, you had like one individual that was complete and whole and totally full of itself, and then there was another giant person who was like completely individuated. There was no enmeshment, there was no entanglement going on. It was like each auras was complete, there's no holes in it, there was no alien, foreign matter, things that I picked up from other people. And I know that extreme individuation is our genius destiny. It's like extreme individuation, right? Because when you're filled up with your genius, you're not available for anything human. It doesn't mean, it sets you free to just love without all the codependence and, shadow bullshit in in the relationships. It's pure love then. um, And that the giant, why I experienced them as giant, was because they had totally submitted to the genius. They were totally devoted to the genius. And they had like shed the human shell and then just really just become the genius. So it became like a town, a world of giant geniuses. And it was so awe-inspiring. It was so glorious, so magnificent once I got over the shock and realized. But one of the things that it has left me with, that experience or that vision or whatever, was that how alien those giants were. Like everything we think of that makes us human, the interactions, the connections, whatever, the enmeshment, the entanglement, the shadow, the ego. It's like it wasn't there, right? And it felt so alien. It felt so non-human. But there was also like this purity, this power, um, this individuation without, people were still interacting and whatever, but it was like, oh, wow, 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 wow. Anyway, so the mystic genius, the unknown, right? So we don't really know what it is. We don't know where it's leading. It's because we give up control, right? We just become available. Okay, what does my genius want me to do now? You don't try to control. You don't try to make anything happen. You don't try to plot the path forward, because that's putting controls on your genius, and you can't tame your genius. You can't put it in boxes. You can't control how it comes. It's really hands-off control. If your genius says jump, you jump. If your genius says write a post about this, you write a post about that. If your genius says take a walk to the river, you take a walk to the river, right? There's no discussion. I can't be bothered. That's like been a big one of my ego coming in. When I got a genius command, it's like my ego says, no, I can't be bothered. Maybe I'll do it later, but I can't be bothered, right? It's like a thing that I really had to like train myself out of, like my automatic instant response, which I wasn't even conscious about in the beginning. So the unknown is home to your genius. You don't know. You don't know. It's the unknown. It's the business of the unknown. And it can be really terrifying, right? Because ego likes to know what's happened, what is going to happen, so it can feel safe. But here you don't know. You just don't know. It's totally going blind into the future. You don't know. You only know like right here, right now. And this is the third in a series of master classes, and I was just Genius Command, one after the other, right? So the first one was how to purge ego content, because that's kind of where you have to start. It's in some way the most important one. Then came your true path to success, how many, creating your business success really happens, not what the collective believes, what the matrix tells you, but how it actually really happens. And now this one, the mystical side of business, which is all about your genius business. And then a couple of days ago, I got the command for the next one, which is going to be the Dragon's Journey from Ego to Genius. So the unknown, the void is the unknown, right? It's like, well, you just don't know. Well, there's nothing known in it. And it's empty and it's still and it's silent, right? You enter the void when your mind goes silent, when you're empty inside, when you're just still. And that's where your genius lives, in your consciousness, right? The void is also the divine. So this is why it's mystic. It's a mystic genius, right? Because a lot of it is unknown. You can't see the whole future. It's not something you can control. You know it's going to be big. You know it wants to be big. You know it has big impact, big wealth, whatever. But how you get there, you don't know that. So maybe a different way of saying is this, like, you might know what it's about, you don't know how it's going to happen. And ego wants to go to how immediately, right? How? How can I create my business success? How can I know? How can I this? How can I that? You don't know. And you have to be comfortable with not knowing the how until right before you have to know it. So you are the host of your genius field. You are the conduit for streaming the divine truth of your genius through you into the world. You are the steward, meaning you submit to the genius being the boss of you. Your genius business knows what it wants to become. It's already in the codes. It's already encoded with its biggest success. And you just kind of show up and takes orders, and then you go out and do it, right? It's like you're the hands of the genius in the 3D world. And that's it. It's like genius is your boss. It says, do this. And you say, yes, I'll do this. So with this masterclass and with all these masterclasses in the series is, I just get the command, do a masterclass on this. And then, sometime before the masterclass is due, I sit down and start, putting on slides the parts that I know I want to talk about. And then as I'm doing it, I get more and I get more and I get more and I get more. And as I'm actually starting talking, there's more and more and more coming out. So you're the steward, right? And think of it as a sacred stewardship, because your genius is divine, it's sacred, right? It's a sacred responsibility. And you are the person responsible for creating the big genius successful business, right? That's your responsibility. You are the one who takes genius up here, run it through you, and then it becomes this thing out in the world. And you just show up with absolute willingness and no resistance. And resistance is ego, and it's going to resist and resist and resist, like you wouldn't believe it, but it comes. So the executor is like the one who goes into the 3D world and take actions. So now we come to a different part of it, is like taste versus desire. So desire is when you know something very specific that you want. You want it this exact way. And if you don't get it this exact way, you're not going to be happy. This is very much the ego, right? Whereas with the taste, it's more open-ended. So desire could be, it's like, no, coaching business. I want to make $100,000 a month. This is a desire. It's very locked in. It's very concrete. The taste is, I just want to make a lot of money on doing what I love to do, on my genius, right? I don't really care whether it's like 80,000 or 120,000 or whatever the amount is. I just know that I really want to do my genius business, and I'm willing to show up, and I'm willing to be wealthy. Yeah, I want to have money overflow. I want to be wealthy. So desire is, I want 100,000, right? It's like it has an element of control in it. Whereas taste has more about submitting yourself to however wealth and abundance is going to come into your life. You don't control it, right? And the thing here is that your God self, which is your genius self, right? You already know what you want, what your human self knows, or what your human self wants. It's like, how can your God self not already know what you desire? Think about that, right? Your human self doesn't need to impose its, I want it this way, or it's not going to be good enough, right? It's the control. It's a desire. So the taste is like you submit yourself to a life of abundance and wealth, and you have total faith that it's going to come to you in exactly the way that you're most going to love to live. And your human self doesn't always know what that looks like. Doesn't know what that always going to look like, which is why you don't want to try to control how your future happens, right? You just want to keep submitting to your genius. You keep submitting to your genius and devoting yourself to following your genius commands. And then it's going to become what is always meant to become. And your genius, because it is big, it's your divine mandate, it's God's love and abundance creating your life, right? Not your limited human, but God. It doesn't need to be controlled. It's already on your side. It already wants you to have a better life than you could ever imagine for yourself. It's like unimaginable, because you can't imagine the life that God has planned for you. You can only have faith that that's going to be the best life ever, and you're going to love it no matter how it ends up looking, you know. So one of the things we work with in the when it comes to a genius business is a negative frame. So a positive frame is like where you say, okay, this is how I want it to look. And it's like kind of you create a frame around something you already know what is, right? 100,000 a month. That's my positive frame. This is what I want, 100,000. This is the image of the 100,000, and then I'm going to put a frame on it. A negative frame is empty. All right, you go, this is not my genius, this is not my genius, this is not my genius, this is my ego, this is my genius, this is fear, this is the ego, da 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 da. So you only allow into the frame what's pure genius codes, what's coming from God, right? Keep saying, no, no ego here, no ego creation here, no ego creation here. So it is empty because it's a taste, right? You keep it open. You don't fill it up. You can have ideas, you have a taste for what kind of life you want to live, right? So I just recently came across these YouTube videos about this guy who goes to like these super fancy hotels and does videos about them. And I look at some of them and it's like, I just have no taste for staying in hotels, like super fancy hotels like that. They are so not to my taste. And I thought to myself, well, what is to my taste? Well, it's like being out in nature, like not going, it's not to my taste to go shopping at these like high-end stores in like big cities. I want to be out in nature. I want to go hiking. I want to go to the beach, to the mountains, to the forest. That's my taste, right? So I don't have to log it in exactly where I'm going to be, what exactly that's going to, look like, because my God self already knows what's my taste for my life. So extreme individuation, I already touched on that, is that nobody else has the same genius as you, right? And it's like this separation where the extreme individuation is like you separate yourself from the collective human, the matrix, if you want. You remove yourself from the matrix, and you go in and play in the matrix, but you do it from outside, not from within it. So you remove yourself, you extreme individuation, and that's freedom. That's true freedom. There's no loneliness involved. You are absolutely still going to be connected with people and loving them. So supreme integrity refers to the fact that you just keep refusing to letting ego run your life or make your decisions for you, like your ego content, your ego stories. Like, you just have like, no, this is not going to make my decisions. This is the imperial standards, like no ego, only genius, no ego, only genius. And the supreme integrity is that you devote yourself to whatever it is that your genius wants you to do, without trying to control it, without trying to impose control, because your human self has fears, because you don't know, right? It's the unknown. So when you're outside the matrix, you go into the absolute unknown and you leave everything that's human about you behind, meaning you let go of your identity, which is where there's nobody. You're nobody, right? You don't know who you are any longer. You just know that I am. You're pure consciousness outside the matrix. You have no fucking clue to what you're doing because it's the unknown. I don't know what I'm doing. And you have no desires. You have a taste for how you want your life to be, but you have no desires exactly. You don't impose control. So you don't actually even know where you're going, right? And it leaves you wide open for magic, for big magic, for divine truth magic. It's going to come to you no matter how. It's like when you don't resist whatever comes to you, you're going to have so many lovely surprises. That's how magic can appear in your life, right? Let go of control, let go of all resistance to anything that doesn't fit the idea you have in your mind. Become nobody. Drop all your identities and see what happens. Don't know what you're doing, you just know the next thing you're doing. Like I just knew, now I'm doing this masterclass, right? It's like, you don't have to know more than the next thing. You don't know where you're headed. You don't have to know, because it's already coded into your genius. So you just like keep walking the path as it appears, right? And I was listening to a short interview or part of an interview with Louise Hay. It's a while ago, but from Hay House. She was very big in the beginning with the body-mind connection from way back in the 70s, maybe even, but the 80s, right? I got to know her stuff in the early 90s. And 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 she talked about how she just showed up for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. It's like, oh, I think I need to write this down. So she wrote it down, and then she said, oh, well, maybe somebody suggested I publish it. So yeah, I'm publishing it, and then I do this and then I do that, just whatever the next thing that appeared to her, she just said yes and showed up for it. But she didn't have a plan for the rest of her life. She didn't plan for a successful business. She just showed up and showed up and showed up without resistance. So she didn't know where she was going. I am sure she had never thought she would have a publishing house. Yeah, she just said yes. And this is how you live from outside the matrix. It's like you just show up because you know that whatever you're presented with in your life is like the next part of your greatest story. It's the next part of your myth. It's the next part of your tone of truth life. So dark, light, shadow. So the dark void. So if you think about the Bible, how the Bible starts is like God said, let there be light. Actually, I don't know if the Bible, but somewhere in the Bible, the creation story is God said, let there be light. Now, why would he say, let there be light, if it wasn't because he was in a dark place, a place without light? So this is how I think about the dark void, right? It's like, this is where God exists. God doesn't exist in the light because he said, let there be light, but he's also light. He's both dark and light and everything, But I think of the dark as where the raw codes of creation exist. It's the codes of creation that has no shape yet, right? It's like where everything is all of creation is sourced from the dark, and it's really funny, when you start looking at dark energy and dark matter, like 90% of the universe is created of the dark matter, dark energy. They don't really know if it exists, but because of the mathematical equations, it has to exist, right? It's really fun to kind of take that similarity, whatever you want to call it. So the dark contains the raw codes, like the primal codes of creation. They haven't been shaped or locked into order or form. So it's all chaos. I don't know if plasma is the right word here. Maybe it is, but it's like just source material, creation source material. And it's unlimited because nothing has any form yet. It hasn't been locked into any order. It's just potential, right? It's like the primal matter. It's potential. It can become everything. So it is truly unlimited. It has no form, it has no shape, it's just pure potential. And this is where your genius sources its creations from, right? It comes from the dark. The genius exists in the dark. So when you live your genius, you tap into something, the raw codes of creation, where God exists, the primal codes of creation that exist outside the matrix. It hasn't been made into matter yet. It's unlimited potentials. It's everything. as at the same time it's absolutely nothing, right? It's nothing and everything at the same time. And it's God. It's God's codes, where God created matter from, where God created the universe from. So the light of consciousness is like when you shine a light, and I want you to just kind of like follow me here. It's like when there's light, you can see. You can't see in the dark, but as soon as there's light, you can see. And I'm talking about the light of your consciousness as much as I'm talking about like visible, right? It's like the allegory here. So what your consciousness can see, it can manifest. What it can see, it can't manifest. So the light of your consciousness is almost like, oh yeah, so the limited part is like you can only manifest what you can see, and you can't see in the dark, right? You can only see in the light. So, but the way your genius works is like, one of the dragon archetypes is the oracle. The oracle can see in the dark. The blind seer sees in the dark. Excuse me, I need to get some water here. So when the dragon archetype of the oracle, it can see in the dark. And when it sees in the dark, it brings the light of your consciousness onto the primal raw codes of creations that are chaos, that has no shape yet, and imposes order on them. Imposes order on the codes from the dark, which are the raw codes of creation, the primal codes of creation, imposes order. And once it imposes order on them, it becomes something that you manifest. And you do that with the unbending intent of you will have that in your 3D life. So I talk a lot about unbending intent in the previous masterclass that's called Your True Path to Success. And I recommend that you get that and watch that too, because I'm not going to go into it here. But the light of your consciousness determines what you can see. So this is why the codes of your consciousness are so important, right? Because ego can only see, from, or ego sight is the side of fear and lack. And your genius side is looking into the dark of everything that could be that doesn't exist yet, right? So whatever you impose order on is what you can see in your consciousness, is what you can then bring into 3D matter form. So it's like there's so many things that exist, but because you can't see them, it never occurs to you to have a taste for them. Even just in 3D life. I mean, like I like scrolling on Instagram, and I'm constantly amazed at what people create as their business. I just just today I came across something that never even occurred to me as a thing before, is that creating backdrops for photo shoots, and just with like strings of fabric. I was like, it's never something I could ever imagine. I couldn't see it. And because I couldn't see it, it never existed as something my human could then, start turning into matter. I just couldn't see it, right? So if I can't see it, I can't manifest it. Which is why submitting to genius is so awesome because your genius comes from the dark. The dragon codes, that is kind of like the bridge to the dragon archetype. That's a bridge to your genius, or the bridge between your human and your genius, can see into the dark. Just blows my mind. So anyway, so what you see as experience as 3D reality is the shadow from the light of your consciousness being shown upon something that, in your consciousness. So so take this class again, right? It's like my my dragon oracle archetype looked into the dark, pulled out the codes and says, or came across to my genius, like, let's do this masterclass. It didn't exist. It's nothing I've ever considered doing before. And then once it was brought to my attention, looking into the dark, bringing it to my as a genius command, like, do this masterclass, I could then, with my consciousness, see this masterclass, and with unbending intent, I decided I'm just going to devote myself to it. It's going to happen. And then, with my consciousness, I could see this masterclass, and then the shadow, it's like when you shine light onto an object, it creates a shadow, right? So in my consciousness, I saw this masterclass, and what we're doing right here is the shadow that's cast into the 3D matter. And this is really, really, really important to understand this, because what you manifest in your consciousness. Whatever your consciousness can see is what is automatically gonna be manifested. So, and especially what it stares at is what is automatically gonna be manifested, Whatever keeps your attention in your consciousness, subconsciously too, right? It's like what your consciousness looks at it most, stares at, right? So if what your consciousness stares at is the fear of not having money, then that is what you will automatically manifest, right? It's like, here's the object that's called fear of not having money, and you keep sending the light of your consciousness. You keep looking at it and seeing this and seeing and seeing it. So of course, the shadow of that is going to be, you're going to be short on cash, right? So whereas if you keep seeing, okay, I can have like 100K months, just for an example, right? You keep staring at this 100K months. You don't try to force it. You just see it. It does exist. It already exists in your consciousness. You just keep your eye on it. And it's going to happen all by itself. It's going to, cast the shadow onto your 3D matter. And the work that we are after, right, is like being able to consciously choose what our consciousness looks at. Because whatever it looks at, whatever holds its attention most, whether it's like ego stories or genius creations, that's what's going to be automatically manifested. Manifesting is not done with action, it's done with your consciousness. And part of your stewardship is then, being willing to show up and move things in 3D, right? Just like I'm like moving this masterclass, this creation of this masterclass in 3D by actually creating the slides and showing up and doing it. And it needs my creator's will, right? It's like, I will, this is going to happen. Will is not about forcing it, but it's like, taking the codes and molding it into a 3D thing. So this is what manifesting is really about, right? What you can see in your consciousness, what you're looking at in your consciousness, what your consciousness has decided what matters most, whether ego or genius, is what is automatically going to manifest. Just like that. And your ego, the problem with ego is that it makes you have feelings about something. And that, because whatever your feelings about hooks your attention in your consciousness, right? So this is what matters. And then you know the saying, what you resist persist. So the feelings you resist feelings are the feelings gonna persist. You know, fear of not having money, for example, or fear of being abandoned, or you know, whatever it is. It's like fear of being abandoned, fear of not having money, you know, fear of not having the power to make money, whatever it is. It's like fear of losing your health, fear of not being able to regain your health. It's like all these fears, when there's a big emotional charge, they becomes what you're looking at in consciousness. Not necessarily consciously, but subconsciously. I hope you followed that one. Okay, so your genius business. It is very exact and precise, and yet at the same time mutable and ever changing. So it's exact and precise, and this is what I meant with your genius codes, right? It's like this field of codes that is extremely precise. This is it, and there's nothing else. It's just extremely precise and extremely exact. And what I see with people doing is like, yes, this is a genius, right? But they like keep circling around it. Sometimes they go out here and then they'll go off on a tangent because the coach told them to or whatever. But it's very few people that can stay in the genius and just stay there, right? This is the work we need to do. And so this is what alignment is about. It's like people talk about alignment, right? And yes, you have to align, but you don't want to align to your, you know, whatever ego tells you is the truth. You want to align to your genius. So I had this picture in my mind. It's okay, so say this is like, you know, this is it. This is like true alignment with your genius. But then ego comes in a little bit and distort it over here because ego has some feelings about that. It can't be bothered. It seems too difficult. Nobody's going to want to buy it, whatever. So you kind of change it a little bit, just a tiny little bit. But if you take this one in, you know, just tiny little shift can take you far off course. So your genius business is over here, but because you have started deviating just a tiny, tiny bit, because ego is having some problems with this, it goes over here, and then it goes over here and here and here, and this big success is never going to happen. So you want to come into alignment with your genius, which is why it matters so much to have it activated and know exactly what it is, because then you can always come back to it and know exactly where you can find it inside of you. Like, get in touch with that. That's so good. This your genius field. So this is alignment, because you know, if you come up here, right, and then you realize you're out of alignment, and there's it, I need like 4 hands for this, right? So I'm gonna try with these instead. This is genius, and then you come out here and, you know, just cut a little bit off, and then, you know, it does this one. And then this is what you did. So now this pin here is like, you come over here, but you align back to this one. You don't align all the way back to your genius. You see? So it's very important to know what your genius is, so that you can always come back to like your divine alignment, aligned with your divine truth, not aligned with what your ego is comfortable with. Right? And the other part is where I said it's at the same time mutable and ever changing. Your genius is extremely exact and precise. It's really, really exact. It's not just sort of like this, or, you know, about this. It's like, it's exactly about this. Like, my genius is about the dragon's journey from ego to genius, and it's about genius business empires. That's it. It's exactly precise. Now, how it's at the same time mutable and ever changing is, for example, I have different containers, I have different programs, I have different offers, right? Different frames. And even before I knew it was my genius, it had the frame of a school of natural health mastery, mind, body, spirit health mastery, right? Where I was teaching what I knew at this time about the journey from ego to genius and about genius business empires. It was there. It has always been there, but it's only in recent years I've really seen that this is it. But it has different frames, throughout my entire life. It's always the same genius codes. And it has always been what drew my interest. It's always been what mattered to me, back when I called it personal transformation. And where, I was calling myself a business psychic because I could see people's potential in the work or the business. It was like the kind of psychic, this is where my psychic goes into genius activations. And I was just taking so many forms over the years. I was teaching codependence, I was teaching highly sensitive people, but always the same, always going in the same place. And every time I think I'm just going to focus on personal transformation, somehow it always ends up being about people's business, It's really funny in hindsight. But I have a great example of this, not just myself. So one of my past clients, she was actually, from long ago, before I even started talking about genius. But what I realized at one point was her genius was about teaching women how to be shameless divas, it's like shamelessly devoted to themselves. I was like, just this was the word for it. And she was coaching that, and whatever she did before was exactly the same also, but it was completely different. If she wasn't a coach, she was doing something different. And then last I heard from her, she was turning over into working with jewelry, designing jewelry. And as she was describing the kind of jewelry she was going to design for people, it was like exactly the same, like shamelessly devoted to yourself, being a diva. So this is what I mean by different phrase. It's exactly the same codes, but the frame that you stream, remember the negative frame, right? It's like the frame can change, but it has to be the exact same codes. The exact genius codes. Not sort of your genius, but your exact genius codes, right? It can be anything. I mean, you can become, I don't know, a cowboy and a business coach, right? It can be exactly the same codes, but the frame, one is a cowboy frame, the other is a online business coaching frame. It's different, but it's the same, right? Which is what I mean by at the same time mutable and ever changing. So in my case, I probably always work with people. I have different frames. I've certainly had like many different offers. I've had many different focuses, I'm going back, as I mentioned. But I also do retreats and taking people for trips to power places. Different frames, exactly the same dragon's journey with people from ego to genius and genius business empires. That's it. That's it. That's what Meta Mystique is about. And this is what this masterclass is about, right? It's sort of like my magnum opus about genius business. So your genius has absolutely nothing to do with you, meaning it exists outside your human self. And it's also more purely you than anything else you've ever experienced, because it is your divine mandate, right? It's like who God has given you, it's your God-given purpose, your genius. It's who you purely and truly are, which um, uh, who you truly are in this life, right? What your life is about, what your divine mandate, this is what you were born to do. And the more you just do your genius, the more joy you're going to feel, the more freedom you're going to feel, the more fulfilled you're going to feel. You know, besides all the, you know, like the material aspects of it, like just how it fills you with joy and freedom and fulfillment and contentment and peace, because you're not fighting with yourself, right? So my experience is that if you don't do your genius, you will always end up fighting with yourself, because you know you're not, you know, being who you are. Um, so it's your divine mandate, right? It's divine, not human, meaning it has nothing to do with your human self, but everything to do with how God is coming through you right now, who God has made you to be right now. So submission, what was I saying here? Submission is, you gotta stop letting your human self, your ego, take control of your life, right? You just gotta show up for what your genius wants to be. And it's a stewardship, as I talked about before, right? It's like you take full responsibility for being the one who creates your genius art, you know, like creates the creates what the genius creations in the 3D life, whatever it wants to show up on. And it's your tone of truth life. And when I say your tone of truth life, it's like you're coming in here, you're being born with like a segment of God's truth streaming through you, right? That segment of God's truth, divine truth, is you in this life. So the more you can submit to God's truth, not control it, not trying to like look at what other people are doing and like try to get the same thing. It's like, but just show up for your tone of truth life. The more um, the more you're just gonna absolutely love and adore your life. And you're free of all comparisons, because you come into the life that's just the life that is your greatest story that you most love to live this time around, right? And it's always a divine truth that is unique to you. So your genius business is always what it is, never what has been or could be. It's always right now. So time doesn't exist. Time is an illusion, right? So time is a construct of the human mind to try to impose order on our experience. But the past doesn't exist. The future doesn't exist. There's only right now, right? So your genius business, your genius is right now. It only exists right now. You only exist right now. So once you take take that in, it's like you lose all your points of reference, that whatever was in the past for you, it doesn't exist. And it's like when you really get that the past doesn't exist, you won't have a frame of reference, a point of reference for comparing to your present moment to. So every new moment is created on its own. And we all know the matrix is a linear time, right? It's a human construct. So all time, there is only now. And this is why, you know, another way you can think about like a genius exists in the dark, because time is not in the dark. Like the time is a human construct, is human consciousness. But when you go into divine consciousness in the dark void, there's only now, and there's only now, and there's only now, and there's only now. So it is always what it is right now. Your genius business has no past. There is what could be, you know, you can see, you know, it wants to be be big, but it doesn't matter because it already is what it is right now. It already contains all the code right now. So the question becomes, how much can you submit to your genius? How much can you devote yourself to doing all the things that your ego has a problem with, can't be bothered outside the comfort zone, or what are people going to think about me, blah, blah, blah. And just let it be what it is without judging it. Ego judges. Ego will have opinions about everything and judge everything. So it doesn't have a vision, right? Because it's in the dark. You can't see in the dark, right? And ego can't handle that. Your ego, your human self can't handle it. It wants to be able to see forward. And there's no forward, there's no future, right? It's dark. It's dark. You can't see in the dark. And it's always bringing something new to life because it is seeing in the dark. This is what the dragon archetype, the oracle, is about. It can't see in the dark, and yet it can see in the dark, meaning that it will. I mean, the archetypes is also your consciousness, right? So there's a part of your consciousness, your genius, that will go into the dark and decide which codes you want to bring, into the light so that you can see them, right? So there is no vision. There is like the field of codes that you can sense, that you can experience, that can be super active, and you can feel it wants to become something big, but you don't know what it is, and you don't know how you're going to do it, which is what I mean. There's no vision. But it's always bringing something new to life because it's pulling from the raw creator codes of creation, right? Not what has been, other people have done, something completely new. And yeah, I think I said that unknown to your consciousness. Yeah. So the myth of your genius and the big success it has, it's unknown to your consciousness, right? So you can't know it, you can't see it. When you don't know what it is, you can't see it, so you can't have any vision. You can only see what your consciousness chooses to shine a light on. Your genius chooses for your human consciousness to shine a light on. So unlimited creations, you can create anything, as long as it's true to your genius, and your genius will tell you what's the next creation, right? And once you get over, oh, this being outside my comfort zone and I don't know how, whatever, you just get to it one step at a time. You always know the next step. You always know the next step, right? So your genius, again, determines which codes the Oracle dragon type can see in the dark. Because the dragon archetypes, they're the bridge between your human self and your genius, which is divine truth. I hope you're following me with this because I think it can be a little bit confusing. So genius sees no money, right? Remember, genius exists in the dark, outside the matrix. Money is a matrix concept. It's a human construct, right? Cannot be seen by genius. And it is very, very interesting because your human self is going to think about money and focus about money and how can I make more money and do I have money enough to pay the bills, or I really want the 100K months and oh my God, I have a goal of becoming a 7-figure coach. But your genius does not see anything about money. Yeah, I know money exists, but it's sort of out here somewhere. And what is true for everybody who submit to the genius is that the money appears magically, not from what they do, but from their submission to genius and only taking genius steps. So some years ago, I was making around 50K cash a month. And there's various reasons why that collapsed. But while I was doing these 50K cash months, I didn't do anything. I didn't post. I didn't do anything. I was like purging my ego, um, just being present in the moment. And somehow the 50K cash months found me. They found me. I didn't go out and make them happy. I hardly did any marketing because I had nothing to say, right? I was really existing in the dark where there's just emptiness, where my presence in the dark was far more potent than any words that my human could come out with. And it was a very, very interesting experience to experience this, that all I had to do was be, just take care of my ego when it popped up, have fun, enjoy it, and, are so easy. Are so easy to make 50,000 cash a month. And, it collapsed because there was a whole bunch of ego things that I hadn't taken, that I hadn't dealt with, that was suddenly being exposed, when I wanted to go further. So, and that's okay too, right? Because it's not about the money, it's about my submission to my genius and living my divine truth. Um, so I've experienced myself, I've seen it with my clients, I've seen it with people around the world, that when they just and I was just reading this about somebody who, it's like, I haven't even told anybody my business. I've just been like posting about my truths, what I know, and suddenly I had a 35,000 cash months, and I never told anybody what my business is, right? The money just came, right? Because she had submitted to her genius, and I look at her genius, I can feel the genius codes in it, but what she says makes no sense to me. I mean, it's like those codes are definitely not for me, but I notice it, right? I notice the genius. And it's just so beautiful, right? It's like all you have to do is show up, be your genius, let the genius come to you, be the sacred steward that like kind of move things like the typewriter for your genius. Um, and money appears all by itself, and that's it. It's truly extraordinary, truly extraordinary. I love it. So money abundance is already coded into your genius. Remember, big wealth. And remember, genius is divine truth, meaning faith. You have total faith. You have so much faith, you don't even think about whether you have faith or not. It's not even belief, right? Because you know that when you're submitted to your genius, you can feel that you are that abundance, easy abundance, magical abundance is just there for you, right? So it makes money a no thing. Money becomes something that doesn't matter. And the less you're attached to money, the less you're focused on money, it's the easier it can come to you because you don't resist it, right? When it's a no thing, something that doesn't matter, there's also no resistance to it, and then it can flow into you. It's just this inpouring of money, and you go like, wow, wow, wow. So it sees no money. The focus is on creating what your genius wants you to create, and then enjoy life, show up for whatever life brings you, and sometimes, a lot of times, there's nothing to create, and then you don't create anything, and you still make a lot of money. You're still having a successful business. I was saying a lot of times the the problem is that ego is not going to like the things that genius wants you to do, and that's where the resistance come in, which is again why it's so important to purge your ego instead of just like pushing it aside or whatever. You might as well get it out of the way now that it's here, you can see it, rather than push it aside and try to ignore it and suppress it, so it's going to pop up as a later thing. You don't want that. So the focus is on the genius art creation. And that's it. You're here to do your genius art, to turn it into 3D masterpieces, deeply coated with your genius, and the money is going to take care of itself. So your genius also speaks of a strange non-human reality, right? It's like I talked about this alien, and it's like way outside people's understanding, but people pay attention because they can feel the truth in it. They can tell that there is a truth that you don't quite understand, but something in you recognizes these potent truth codes. And I'm thinking back to when my coach, where I first learned about the giant genius. And I remember her post. It's like, I understand every word and I have no clue what she's talking about, but something in me recognizes the absolute truth of what she's saying. And this is how she became my coach and I became her long-term client. But it's like, to my mind, none of it made any sense. It's like the words, yes, the individual words, the individual sentences, but it was like spoke of something beyond my human um, ability to actually really comprehend, right? Which is, I could know, but I could not understand. And this is where you work with your genius, right? It's about knowing, not understanding, because only the ego cares about understanding. Your God self knows, right? So it's a truth beyond the matrix. You can recognize it. Your God self in you, the part of you that's not human, recognizes truth beyond the matrix. And when you say it's a seeker, right? When people say they're seeking, everybody's seeking that truth beyond the matrix. So this is why there's a search for that truth and search for real life matrix, because somewhere in you, you know that it exists, that the matrix is an illusion. It's a lie, that the human narrative about it, what it takes to create a successful business, is an illusion. It's not truth. It is something else. And maybe you have had experiences that showed you the that what most people present as the truth about what it takes to succeed in business is a lie, which is how I came into this, right? Because I knew that sometimes I would just shift my state of being spontaneously and money would start pouring in. And other times I would like work my ass off to create some money, and I would make none. It's like my income has always been about my state of being. And it's like I didn't know why sometimes my state of being allowed a lot of, what changed my state of being. And, in hindsight, I can see it was all about, like I spontaneously would flip out of my ego stories and come into my genius, even if I didn't know it, right? Even if I didn't recognize that was still what I was doing. And so, other people have that same knowing, having had that same experience. And ultimately, because genius is divine truth, right? This is where we always seeking, we're seeking God. It's like our genius business is our spiritual journey, it's our path home to God. So your genius business exists only in the void, but it's seen in the 3D world. And so your genius codes are dark codes, they are void codes, they are raw creator codes, they are chaos codes, they are not locked into order. And I mean, sometimes only in hindsight can you see why something happened. So it's divine truth codes, it's not human understanding codes, it's dark light and shadow of the manifesting. And it whispers, and yet it is heard very, 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 very loudly, right? So one of the business coaching things that were floating around some years ago was like to shout out loud. shout in your marketing, right? Make your marketing shout. But it can be the gentlest of whispers, but because it's coded with divine truth, it's going to be heard about the noise of everybody who shouts lightly. So the prompts to your genius commands, call them prompts, call them nudges, call them pings, right? You will know them in the silence of your mind. So ego makes your mind busy and noisy, which again, we come back to, you're going to start purging your ego. When you're silent, you can hear your genius commands. And your genius codes is like, imagine you have a sea of light bulbs, like just like regular living room light bulbs. And in that ocean of light bulbs, your genius codes are going to shine or beam, be as potent as a lighthouse, right? Think about that. Think about the difference in the potency, because your divine truth is always paradigm shattering, shattering, shatters the trance of the ego. It will shatter your human narrative. It like pierces right through all the bullshit, and it will activate. It will activate. It will activate you out of ego and into something else, right? And it can be shock. It can be brutal. It can be very brutal, but in the moment, right? It's brutal to ego. To your God self, it's just like, yeah, bye bye, ego. It's nothing, it's just pure joy. But your ego, to your ego, it can be brutal. So divine truth is always extremely potent and piercing and cuts straight to the bullshit of ego. Always. So you never decide, except you can decide whether to follow ego and or genius, right? You never decide because you just act on your genius commands. And yet you make instant, constant decisions all the time, which is in reality just mini decisions to keep following your genius commands. Like, for example, the background image here, right? That was like I was looking at different images to use as the background for the slides here. And I was like, ding, there was just like click, something clicked. It was like subtle, you know? It's like click. So I said, okay, that's the one the genius wants me to use. And so I did, you know? It was an instinct decision to pay attention to the ping. And instead of looking for something that my ego likes better, because this is not to my ego's taste, but this is the code of this is what my ego wanted. So I say yes, yeah, submission. So it's always about submission to the next creation and action. It's not about imposing your ego's judgment or your ego's opinions of what is good and what is bad, what you like and what you don't like, right? And it's the discovery of what those decisions are. It's like you don't really decide, but you discover your decisions. So I didn't really decide to make this masterclass. I discovered that I had made the decision, or that decision had been made to me to do this masterclass. So the only decision you always have in every given moment, like now, are you going to follow genius commands or your ego's demands, right? Your ego, genius commands, ego commands. Only choice you ever have. So it has no time. Your genius business has no time. It stands impeccably still, completely still. And because it stands still in the dark, everything can move really, 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 really fast. So once you are out there chasing, your business success, you're not standing still. And that means it takes longer time because you have moved from your place of power and you have moved into force. So force is, you have two things. It's like force is like they're acting on each other, right? It's like, I have to make this happen. I have to make this happen. I have to, you have to apply force. Whereas power, it is standing still. The power radiates from you. It radiates from you, including your power to create business success, your power to create clients, your power to create money, because you create it all. You manifest it all. So you're out there chasing when you see something, out there, like money is out there in the far distance and you're out there chasing it, versus just being right here in your power, and money will just come to you instead, right? So it's about staying very, very still in your consciousness and still stay. And the only actions you take are the ones prompted by your genius. So you want it to be manifested for you. You don't want to go out there and make everything happen, work so hard and burnout and exhaustion and sacrificing your marriage and sacrificing your health. You want to be able to stand still and just be, and it's all going to come to you, right? It's all going to come to you. Now, it doesn't mean you're passive, because you're still doing your genius art, but it's being manifested for you, right? Taste versus desire, the negative frame. So nothing happens, and yet nothing is hard at work for you. So when nothing happens, is refers to the fact that you're not making anything happen, right? You're not out there like making things happen. Nothing happens. You're just here living your life, being still in your consciousness. And yet nothing, and with that, I mean the void is hard at work for you, right? Your genius is in the void. It's the divine truth codes of the dark, of the void, that is coming through you. And they are the ones who are doing all the job for you. You just show up and say, okay, this is what you want me to do now? Yes, this is what you want me to do now. And sometimes it's like, take 4 days off, or sometimes it's like, go to Australia, I don't know. It's being, it is not doing. When you're in the state of being, it seems that nothing is happening, but everything is happening really, really, really fast, because if you can stay still in the being, you're not interjecting your desire for control in the manifestation process. So remember, what your consciousness sees and what it like stares at, what it has chosen to matter, is automatically going to manifest for you. So all you have to do is to show up and just say, don't hold yourself back from living. Whatever is here right now is the greatest blessing, and sometimes what is showing up is like to see where you still have ego content interfering, and sometimes it's like just manifesting your desires. And it's about saying yes to life as it is right now, right? Just say yes, and just say yes, and just say yes. And there's no need to be afraid, because your God self is not going to want you to die. Your God self is going to want you to thrive. So you just keep showing up, no matter what your 3D life looks like right now. Just keep saying yes to your genius. Just keep saying yes to your genius, take a risk. Try a different way. If the way you have always done it doesn't work, well, the definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing, expecting a different result, right? It's not same old, same old. It's a perfect unfolding. So genius business has no reflection in the world, right? There is no reflection in the dark where your genius resides. But you can see the echo of it sending ripples through the 3D world. That was the whole thing with like the dark has no reflection. The consciousness shines a light on the object that then casts a shadow onto 3D as matter, as physical matter, right? So your genius business has no reflection in the world. The world is not a mirror of your genius, right? But it becomes your genius art, but not by the mirror effect. very mystical, right? Very esoteric. So you don't know where you're headed, and yet you find your deepest dreams, the ones you barely allowed yourself to know, coming true. How in the world did I end up in Italy, right? Sometimes even after 8.5 years, I still sometimes blink and say, oh my God, I'm living in Italy. And yet you find your deepest dreams, the ones you barely allowed yourself to know, coming true. So your genius business is always a walk into the unknown. You just never know what's next. You can't control magic. You can make yourself available for magic by purging the ego out so you become more available. Genius magic is chaos magic, right? It's not linear that this led to this, led to this, led to this. Because it will come like this, this. Oh, and then in hindsight, you can see what it is. And what it's really about is like submitting to the story of your genius field, like the myth I talked about, like it has a myth, right? So my Metamystique myth is all about like walking into like a big old building, and there's a dragon watching you to see if you're worthy of being able to proceed into this like hall of where you're going to learn about like the dragon codes and the genius. And this is a myth, right? And when I have been playing around with what are the stories, what's in my genius world, there's dragons on it. The Metamystique world has dragons on it. Dragons, dragon codes, dragons is a big part of this. And dragons like to collect gold, we like that too. But it's a mythology, right? And it's a myth, the story. This is why I say I like to turn people into dragons, which means that they stop living the human story and start living the genius story instead. So your genius is already encoded with your greatest story and your best life and your waking dream and the unimaginable. And all you have to do is just submit, 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 in spite of what your 3D reality might look like. And that means that when the ego shows up, you submit to purging that ego instead of trying to avoid it to your best of your abilities. So you do nothing for others, right? It's like genius is about streaming divine truth through you into the 3D worlds, and that's it. That's it. You stand still, become the conduit for divine truth to stream through you. You're not really doing it for others, but they're still profoundly impacted because it's divine truth. You're doing it for yourself because you want to live your genius, right? You're creating your genius art for yourself because you are loyal to your genius. You're not loyal to your ego, you're loyal to your genius. And it's always, I'm doing it for me. And it's awesome that other people get out of it, but it's like your devotion to divine truth. It's like these potent divine truth codes, the more pure your genius is, the more magic you experience. So your genius business is wildly chaotic. And I don't know how many times I have no clue why I'm doing this. I have no clue why I'm posting this. I have no clue. This makes no sense. And then you see, it's like little by little, when you look at hindsight, oh my God, this was like so perfect. And how it was all created into like this exquisite masterpiece of genius art, which for me is my business. And so it's chaos magic, right? It's that chaos is out of order. You can't understand how the different pieces fit together as you're being commanded to do this and commanded to do this, commanded to do this, commanded to do this. You just keep saying yes to your genius commands and doing them. And a lot of it is going to seem absolutely illogical, like illogical actions. It's going to seem absolutely illogical. And that's fine too, because logic is boring, right? Ego likes logic because it gives it a sense of control. But only hindsight reveals that the chaotic disorder was actually order of a higher order. I want to give a very specific example here. So this is a couple of years ago, but it was something that always like stood out as an exceptional example of how this worked. So I was like tuning into, okay, so what does my genius magic want me to do today? And I got like, write a post for a one-on-one client. So I don't know what I'm going to write about, but okay, I'm going to write a post. And I just sit down and type something. And the whole time I'm typing and says, yeah, this is such a weird post. This is such a weird post. It's a really weird post. But okay, I'm just going to let it be what it is. Not try to perfect it or judge it, but just let it be. And then I was looking around for the image, and I kind of really struggled to find the right image for it. And then I found then I was kind of like, okay, how about this kind of image? It was about lightning. And I'm like, lightning, it doesn't fit my brand. It's like, why do I want a photo of lightning? Lightning has nothing to do with Mystique. But okay, I submitted, that was the image that clicked, and I put it out there and then forgot about it. This was just my genius action. And then a couple of days later, completely out of nowhere, somebody drops into my inbox and say, hey, I would like to hire you as my coach. And I said, okay, yeah, what did you have in mind? And she said, okay, I was thinking 6 months. Let's start with 3 months. And I said, okay, great, awesome. So, she drops a 10K deposit for the 3 months, and, we get set up on Slack where I do my one-on-one clients. And we start talking about her genius. And we, I just mentioned that it's like a lightning strike, so here you already see how it works, her genius like had this sense of like lightning strike comes out of the blue and just hit you, and totally shakes you up, like you get struck by lightning, And I said, wow, that is so interesting, because I did this post. And you know what? It turns out she never ever read that post, right? She never read that post. She never saw that image until I told her about that post I had written a few days ago. And the point here is that genius command I got to write this post and to use this image, it was to activate her, right? Those codes were specifically for her, and they worked even if she didn't even see the post, right? So I hope you can see how chaos magic works. And it is just like such a beautiful example that this post I was commanded to write, and my submission to this image that has nothing to do with Mystique, but my submission to it was actually what brought her in as a one-on-one client. Even if she never read that post, she never saw that image, right? I was like, you really to activate her genius. And this is how the chaos magic, the genius magic works, right? It doesn't make sense. And it makes all the sense in the world when you look back at it, right? But not linear, not like action, reaction, action, reaction. It's like action, 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 action. It's like, whoa, it manifested, right? So it's like hands off control and just keep submitting. So, and then the story goes on that she was in the middle of a launch, and it kind of stalled. She had sales for 60,000, I think. And then it kind of stalled, nothing happened. She had nothing to say. She didn't know what. And I said, well, just focus on what is alive in you right now. What is your genius command, right now? What is your genius work of art right now? So she put out like she did a live stream for her launch community, and basically about nothing. She called it nothing and showed up and talked about nothing. and it ended up in like another 80,000 euros in sales just within the first 3 days of working with me, right? It's like coming back to just truth, 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 divine truth, divine truth, divine truth. And what had stalled was that she had gotten into her ego mind about what she should do next. And it's not a great place, to look for answers. So she just submitted to what her genius wanted to do. And then she did it, and instantly, her taste for a lot of money in the launch, for a lot of sales in the launch manifested. So yeah, chaos magic. You gotta love it because it makes no sense and you get all these wonderful surprises from it. So your genius business, you submit to your genius, you devote yourself to it. And when I say devotion, that means like when it tells you to do something, you do it. Even if it makes no sense, even if it's outside your comfort zone, even this, even that. And when you do it, when you submit yourself and start living your genius instead of your ego, you know who you are. You will finally know who you really are. And you'll realize everything else you thought that you were, it weren't. You were not that person that you thought you were. But now you know, right? Just like me, it's like, I was like, when Metamystique first came up, as a name for my genius world, my genius field, I was like, yeah, no, I don't like it. My human self didn't like it, and I was like, yeah, no. Mystique was kind of okay, but Meta, no, I don't like it. Let's try and find another one. And that just wasn't right. I tried hard, but there was nothing else that clicked the way that Metamystique was. And it's like then it took, because there's nobody who can tell me what it is, it's like, this is my genius, nobody else has that same genius, and my genius is to tell you about your genius, to activate it, call it forth, put words to it, and then guide, mentor you into your genius business, genius business empire. Gotta get the empire in. That it took a little while longer to a couple of more years, but time doesn't matter. Is that submission to it, that is so beautiful. And there's just so much joy when you can just finally let go of all the bullshit and say, this is who I am, this is what I'm about. And the more purely I put this out into the world, the easier it is for me to have my tone of truth life, the life, my waking dream life, whatever that looks like. I don't have to know what it is. I just have to be loyal to my genius, and then it will come to me all by itself. So you are not your ego, and what you get is freedom from ego stories. But you keep purging ego out, you get more and more freedom from the stories, and it's easier and easier to just live in loyalty to genius. And that means when you live genius, you live truth. You live truth, you live divine truth, And there's nothing that's going to be better than living divine truth. It's your tone of truth life. And I have a joke with one of my friends that my tone of truth life is a carrot life, because it always feels like I'm in this old farmhouse, with a vegetable garden where I'm growing my carrots. I don't know if it's going to be exactly like this, but I know that it's most likely not going to be like in a steel chrome high rise, in the middle of a big city. It's glass. This is not me, right? This is not my tone of truth life. And it's like, I live in Italy, as I mentioned, and I've been living for 4 years in Florence in the big, beautiful old apartment. And it was close to my tone of truth life, but it was in the center of the city. It had no garden. It had a terrace, right? So I could have some plants, but it wasn't quite my tone of truth life. And the funny thing was, everything think that bigger is better. I was actually too big, my apartment. Was like, I never thought I would say that, but it's like my tone of truth life is like, I don't like to have a lot of things. I just want a small place, right? Maybe not a tiny house, but like a smaller place. And it's your divine mandate. How can resisting your divine mandate, how can resisting God's life for you ever make you happy? Right? And ego will resist it with all its might. Again, this is why, you want to purge your ego. So it's about like just relax and just say yes to whatever comes your way, whether it's like purging your ego or taking actions or whatever it is, or maybe doing nothing, going for a walk, having a cup of tea, watch a movie, it's like all kind of things can be genius commands. Your genius commands are not just about your business. Sometimes, going and buying yourself a bouquet of roses is a genius code that's going to activate a new client to come into your world, or it could be buying a bouquet of roses. It's going to be exactly the codes put on the grid that is going to bring a beautiful new offer alive in you, right? You just don't know. So that's why you keep saying yes. So business as your genius playground, because this is really what your business is. It's like the stage or the playground for your genius, right? Where it can come out into the 3D. And this is what you stream your divine truth into. The creation is your genius art, a gallery maybe. So the matrix game, this is what your genius business is, right? Even your tone of truth life. It's like a story unfolding. It's like a virtual reality of the matrix game, divine consciousness versus human consciousness, right? So the matrix game, you're in the human consciousness. And you are creating the story you are living, right? You're creating it from ego or you're creating it from genius, but you're creating the story every single moment, and you're creating it with what matters to you in your consciousness, what carries the biggest weight in your consciousness, and that's what's going to be automatically manifested for you. You create your 3D life in your consciousness, not with your actions, right? Which is why sometimes you feel like you're repeating the same life over and over and over again. It's like you're in this hamster wheel where you go around and go around, or it's like a rerun of a soap opera. It's like the same patterns coming back up again. So you are the one who is like writing the story, right? And you don't, it's, here again, it's fun because you don't know what story you're writing for yourself. You find out as you're living it. Remember, it's the unknown. You just submit and then you'll find out which story has been written for you. You're the producing of this game. You're the director of it. You're the actor. You're the main character. You're the set designer. You're all the co-actors and you're the audience too, right? It's like all you creating this illusion of a human life, and you get to be and play all the different aspects of it, right? So take that in, that you are writing the story you're living in the matrix, which you're writing in your consciousness. This is why consciousness mastery is so important. The codes of consciousness, mastering the codes of consciousness, so that you can write a game, the matrix game, participate in a matrix game that's more to your liking than the one you're doing now, one that's more to your taste than the one that you're living right now. And it's like you kind of like take a step out of your human life and look at it from the outside, and then you can see that this is completely, everything is your creation. So you can also think of your business as an art gallery, not an art galley, an art gallery. So you're the artist, right? And the genius art you're creating is like priceless to some and worthless to others. It's going to be worthless to many, but for the few people who really need your genius codes to activate themselves for the next, part of their journey, your codes are going to be absolutely priceless. So when it comes, this is why it is so important, because You don't want to work with people. You don't want clients or customers for whom your codes are worthless to. You want the ones they're priceless to. That's what a dream client is. And so it brings you back to the fact that all you have to do is pour out your genius art, create your genius art, take your genius actions or no actions, as it might be, uh, and just let your genius be how you show up in 3D. The more purely you are, the easier it is going to be to manifest your waking dream life. It's about you in the world. It's not about the human you. It's about the pure you, your divine you, your God self in the world. It's about not holding back. It's not putting yourself in a box. It's not about modulating your self-expression to be more palatable or be more relatable to everybody else, because you're not going to make more sales this way. You're going to make more sales the more pure you're being. And what you will also find that there's this like joy, this deep joy. It goes so far beyond happiness and dopamine here. So it's just like a joy that goes all the way into the middle of your bones, from doing your genius art. I can't even begin to explain it. And when you're doing your genius, right, you will really know your power as creator. There is such a sense of satisfaction of being a powerful creator of your genius art. And you're doing it because, like any artist, right, you cannot not do your art. You're called. It just happens so that your business is your art. And then your job then is like, I'm saying exploring your genius codes, like mining them, your genius codes, but it's really just also saying yes to whatever comes to your mind. The more you have ego purged from your consciousness, the more everything that pops up is a genius code. So when something pops up in my mind these days, because I've been working really hard at purging ego, is, I still have this knee-jerk response of I would just push it to the side and not, pay attention to it. Like decades of, doing that is a habit that I'm still working on changing. But then I bring it back and I say, oh, this must have appeared in my mind for a reason. And then I just stay with it. And then it becomes something priceless to me, whatever it is. And with your genius art, you're bringing new divine truth codes into 3D. Now think about that, what it means for the world, right? You know that the world is in a shitty place, There's a lot of shadow stuff going on. Yeah, well, the world, right? So the more divine truth codes you can bring into the world, the better future you create for the planet, being in the matrix or not. So yeah, for your children would be awesome. So coming back, I just wanted to say this, that marketing is placing your genius codes on the grid. And that's what it is. Your marketing is not creating sales, you are. And you're creating them in your consciousness. But when your genius command is to create a marketing post, it's placing the codes on the grid. I don't know how to do it. So you place them not to sell, but to showcase your genius art to an audience, right? You want to reveal yourself. You want people to see who you are. You want to put out your genius art, like all artists, placing the codes on the grid. And then with it is an invitation to share your world. People can come in. If they're called to your codes, they will come to you. And placing your codes on the grid, it's like marketing is kind of like become a touch point or a business card you're placing, so that the people who need your codes, they have a physical way of getting in touch with you. It's about revealing who you are and sharing what matters to you, right? It's like loyalty to your genius. This is what matters. And yeah, I think that was it. Yeah, and the last one is like money comes from you. Money doesn't come from your marketing, whatever. It comes from you. You create cash, right? And you create it in your consciousness. And the more you can submit to genius and not live out your ego, the easier it is to create cash. Create cash, manifest it, it's being manifested for you. So I don't know about you, but I really like it when money is a natural side effect of me living my life. It gets really tiring, really frustrating, really boring to have to focus on money in order to make them. And it doesn't work very well either, right? So only ego will keep money away. Genius will never keep money away from you, but it will help you by exposing your ego, right? But it's ego content that keeps your money away, ego stories. So you want to get to the place where your desires are ego-free, meaning it turns into taste. So yes, I have a taste for a successful coaching business, the Dragon's Journey and Genius Business Empires. So it's hard to let go of ego because there's so much fear in it, and what's going to happen in the future. It's like faith, right? And one thing you have to know about genius is it will always, always, always have your back. It always has your back. Even if you don't, your genius will. Your God self will always have your back. Your ego is going to create all kind of like fucked up 3D situations because it has this weird distorted version of what makes you happy to keep you safe. But your genius will always have your back. And it's important to remember that because giving up control is terrifying, right? But when you get there, you'll find that you can manifest with a thought, right? Maybe not always, but you can do it and say, oh, I would like to have this happen, and then it happens. Sometimes you'll have a thought and you'll have some ego cleaning you need to do, or you need to take some genius, actions, create some genius art, but sometimes you'll just manifest with a thought. And you want to get to this place where your consciousness, where what you manifest is divine truth and magic in its pure form, so that you can live your waking dream life, not your ego struggle-filled life and fear-filled life, but one that is like pure abundance. And this deep, I don't even know, this glorious, gorgeous, delightful, delicious joy of that only happens when you do your genius art, that's always with you. It's like so, so, so deep. It's like pervading everything. And you get that joy, and then it's not even about the money anymore. I mean, they're awesome, and it makes your life more convenient and gives you options, but the real true joy is in like just this devotion to creating your genius art. It's like I can't even begin to describe it. And then again, the automatic manifestation of your waking dream life, your unimaginable life, like your tone of truth life, it'll happen by itself when you just submit to your genius. So I hope to have shown you, I think that was the last one, yes. this is, yeah, I hope to have shown you the, yeah, there's a lot to digest. Caddy, why can't I see this? It won't give me the remove pin. There we go. Yeah, here we are. Yes, there's a lot to digest. I talked 2.5 hours. I can feel my throat is very thin. Okay, if you want to work more with this, if you want to know what your exact genius is, etc., just get in touch with me. As you know, I have different containers. So yeah. And I'll send you the replay, so you will have that once the recording has been processed. And I need to edit it a little bit in the end, but you should have it tomorrow. Okay, so that was it for now. And yeah.